Good evening and welcome to the first edition of Campus Report Card.
On tonight's program, Campus Report Card will review the past year at Ball State and preview upcoming events such as Europe Year.
Plus, campus and community news, the daily news commentary, and a roundup of Ball State sports.
All this and much more up next on Campus Report Card.
Welcome to the first episode of Campus Report Card for the fall of 1991. I'm Brandon Utterback.
And I'm Kathy Spalding. Let's begin tonight with the latest campus and community news with anchor Steve Rogie.
Good evening. A wreck on Interstate 75 near Dry Ridge, Kentucky claimed the lives of two Ball State students Thursday night. Constance Maynard, age 21, and Rhonda Wells, age 20, were killed when the car they were traveling in was hit broadside by a semi-trailer truck. The driver of the car, Patricia Cooney, was listed in fair condition at St. Luke West Hospital in Florence, Kentucky, and 22-year-old Darcy Wilkinson was listed in fair condition in the surgical care unit of University of Cincinnati Hospital. A fifth passenger in the car, 20-year-old Stacy Struble, was released from the hospital with minor injuries. Well, for the first time ever, enrollment at Ball State has surpassed the 20,000 mark. 20,488 students are currently enrolled at the university. That's an increase of over 1,000 students from last year's enrollment. Ironically, the university admitted 286 fewer freshmen in 1991 than in the previous year in an effort to provide consistency in the enrollment figures. Vice President for Student Affairs Douglas McConkey attributes the increase in the student population to an abundance of returning students from internships and college sabbaticals. Well, the student population isn't the only thing that's growing at Ball State. This year's freshman class set a new university record on the Scholastic Aptitude Test. Matriculating BSU freshmen have an average SAT combined score of 900, 4 points higher than the national average and 35 points higher than the Indiana average. These figures reportedly represent what has become a consistent trend in which national and state SAT averages decline, while incoming Ball State students' scores improve. And for $25, Ball State alumni and supporters can take the Cardinal and White with them wherever they go. Newly designed vehicle license plates recognizing Ball State University will be issued by the state starting in 1992. The plates will be valid for cars, vans, and light trucks. Persons wanting the plates must complete a recognition license plate application, which are provided only by the BSU Alumni Association. Completed applications must be returned to the Alumni Association by November 15th. Ball State University has designated the 1991-92 academic year as Europe Year. The focus year gets underway with a kickoff weekend of activities. Buskers, a British term for street entertainers, will perform at the Gala Eurofest Cultural Village celebration at the BSU Arts Terrace tomorrow night. The festivities begin at 7 p.m. and continue through 11 o'clock. The celebration will feature a live comedy show and a multimedia presentation developed by architecture students. The IFC and Pan-Hellenic Council have formed a joint committee to develop campus-wide rules to regulate Greek social endeavors. Greek Social Issues Committee Chairman Mike Johnson explained the intent of the new rules to Campus Report Card this week.
Well, the new rules were put together because the national policies across campus were all different. But by this, they're all the same now, and it's easier to enforce and easier to work with. It's going to be rough the next couple of years, but after that, I think it'll be fine.
Under the new policy, kegs are no longer allowed at Greek establishments. The committee has the authority to issue fines to chapters that choose to ignore the new risk management efforts. And finally, Ball State University is losing money to European companies that are printing and selling BSU apparel overseas. Although the bogus shirts are supposedly facsimiles of real Ball State sportswear, the details of the merchandise's print are slightly skewed. For instance, according to one of the phony shirts found in Scandinavia, Ball County University was last year's California USA champions. For Campus Report Card News, I'm Steve Rogie. Now back to Kathy and Brandon.
The Ball State Year in Review is a yearly project produced by Public Information Services. This past year was an exciting one for students, faculty, and staff. Here are some of the highlights from last year.
Welcome to the Year in Review. I'm Amy Bowman.
And I'm Paul Nicely. Coming up, we'll be examining some of the major events at Ball State University, everything from campus construction to athletics.
It has been a busy year, and there's a lot to tell you about. So think of it as Recent History 101. and get ready to look back at the 1991 academic year at Ball State University. Can you imagine 7 university presidents getting together for a single cause?
That'd be a first.
Well, it was, and it happened this past year as 7 state universities in Indiana joined together in support of a commitment to quality.
In an unprecedented move, the presidents of Ball State, Indiana State, Indiana University, Ivy Tech, Purdue, Southern Indiana, and Vincennes University have joined forces to sound a call for action.
What we're calling for is a commitment to quality that will involve all of the public institutions of higher education in the state, yet one that is unified and comprehensive, one that will call for the best of each institution's mission in higher education in Indiana.
Out of this class of high school students, only these will go to college. Many of the others will have the skills to further their education, and we must help them to take advantage of the opportunities.
But it's not enough just to encourage young people to continue their studies beyond high school. We must also do more to ensure they are successful in college. If their goal is an academic degree, we must ensure they have every opportunity to graduate.
Indiana is blessed with a strong system of higher education. Currently, Hoosiers need not look outside the state to find a quality school to fit their needs. But there are changing trends and growing problems which we must address now to ensure success in the future.
You can bet those efforts will continue for many years to come.
What would you call a high school student studying on a college campus?
Out of place.
Well, maybe in the past. But last year, Ball State University became the home of the Indiana Academy, a highly selective residential school for outstanding high school juniors and seniors. It is officially called the Indiana Academy for Science, Mathematics, and Humanities. But to 150 high school juniors who made up the inaugural class, it is simply called home.
The Indiana Academy is, in fact, a traditional high school in most respects. We have the same energy, the same enthusiasm. We try to accomplish the same goals as you would think any good, effective school should try to accomplish.
It is not your typical high school, however. The students live in Burkhardt Hall on the Ball State campus, taking advanced high school classes while some take college-level courses. Other classes are televised and beamed across the state to many high schools. Green believes the academy is not an elitist form of education. In fact, the academy may not be the best choice for every gifted and talented student.
We try to identify our students in ways that do, in fact, allow them to be very gifted in one area, or at least realize their gifts in one area, and recognize that they will not be gifted in perhaps other areas as well. And that's why our curriculum has to be as diverse and as broad as it is. We'll have students who are very accelerated in mathematics, for example. But then on the other hand, we have to have courses that do prepare them for college, but don't expect them to be gifted in all areas across the board.
Next fall, the second group of juniors will arrive at the academy, bringing enrollment up to 300. They will find themselves in a new level of education in Indiana. Admission requests for next year's academy have really shot up.
Great shot! That reminds me of a special evening in December when the Irving family scored some points of its own.
Fans attending the Ball State-Indiana State basketball game on December 4th witnessed the last tip-off in University Gym. At a halftime ceremony, the gym was renamed.
That this university gymnasium will be named Irving Gymnasium.
A $2.25 million donation to Ball State brought about the name change in honor of the Irving family.
The Irving Materials Incorporated company from Greenfield, represented by C.C. Skunk Irving and Pete Irving, along with another company in Marion and Muncie, the Irving Brothers Gravel Company. That's represented by Dick and Jack and Bill Irving, have of course supplied gravel for our parking lots, and they have helped pave lots, and they provided concrete for many construction projects on this campus over the years. We're delighted now to have the relationship develop into a contributor relationship, and very pleased to have these members of the Irving family join along with all the other contributors to our Wings for the Future campaign.
I'm not real sure how I feel. It's I don't think I think it's neat for my dad and his brothers, and that's what it's all about, I guess.
Well, naturally it'll make us feel very proud. We've never done anything like this before, but we feel real good about it.
The fans were appreciative as well, including Lieutenant Governor Frank O'Bannon. First victory in Irving Gym followed as the Cardinals defeated the Sycamores with a score of 76-75. Everyone hopes the winning streak will continue for many games to come.
The rest of basketball season was quite exciting as well.
It was a great year for all Ball State sports. Here's a quick look at some of the highlights. So many highlights in so little time. All the Ball State athletes had a great year, and that is something to be proud of.
And next year we'll have room for even more fans for basketball, volleyball, and other sports. Construction crews have been busy on the new arena this past year, and work is pretty much on schedule, with the 12,000-seat facility expected to be ready at the end of 1991. It has been 23 years since there has been any expansion of the physical education facilities at Ball State. And what better a way to change that than to build the largest indoor forum on campus? The same architects that designed the Hoosier Dome and the Sports Center Tennis Stadium in Indianapolis are in charge of this project. It will contain classrooms, laboratories, and specialized fitness areas such as an indoor jogging track and a weight room.
Phase 1 of the Health and Physical Activity Complex was completed in the spring. It's occupied by the Institute for Wellness, the Human Performance Laboratory, the School of Physical Education, and Men's and Women's Intercollegiate Athletics.
Renovations also took place across campus. The administration building facelift is now in Phase 2 as work continues on Ball State's oldest building. Just about everywhere you looked, there were improvement projects underway. All of the work is part of the campus master plan and will keep Ball State looking good as it nears its 75th anniversary celebration in 1993.
There's more than one way to spruce up a college campus. Ball State is planning for the future with plant life as well. Ball State will double the number of trees and shrubs on campus by the year 2000. The university's forestation plan is intended to increase the number of species on campus and make the campus more attractive. New trees will help reduce pollution by absorbing exhaust fumes and reduce energy costs by shading buildings in the summer. They will also create homes for birds and other small wildlife.
Imagine this area where students now scurry through this really not well-planned space. Imagine a tree-lined canopy down through this nice boulevard, and just think of how people would react in a very positive way to such a positive environment.
Forestation committee members plan to increase the number of plant species on campus to provide a living laboratory for students. There are now 425 species on campus, up from 350 in 1990. The goal is to have 750 species by the year 2000. Environmental awareness has sure grown recently.
Of course, Ball State students try to be aware of current events as well. The 1990-91 school year brought war to the Middle East, and everyone's routine changed. On Wednesday, January 16th at 4:50 p.m., President George Bush declared, "The liberation of Kuwait has begun." The attack on Iraq was in retaliation to Saddam Hussein's invasion of oil-rich Kuwait. Even though the action was taking place a half a world away, Ball State students kept up on the events. Just about every TV was tuned to CNN, and the viewers watched intently. New terminology became household words, such as sorties, scud, and chemical warheads. Some students got involved by showing their opposition to the fighting in the Gulf, marching in several demonstrations and camping in peace tents on the Quad. At the same time, hundreds turned out to show their support for the American troops involved in the conflict. They marched, sang, and carried signs in favor of the soldiers in the Gulf. After the war had ended, students went back to their normal routines, with the memories of the war still fresh in their minds.
If next year is as busy as this one was, it could only be positive for Ball State.
We only scratched the surface of 1990-91, but we hope we've given you a sense of how the university has grown and prospered. And by looking back, you can see that the foundations are in place for another year in the life of a premier teaching university. For Ball State University, I'm Amy Bowman.
And I'm Paul Nicely. Thanks for watching.
The Ball State Year in Review is a production of Public Information Services. Now for a rundown of the upcoming events at Ball State, particularly Europe Year, my guest this evening is Jeff Alford, Executive Director of Communications and Publications for Ball State. Thanks for joining me, Jeff.
Good to be here, Kathy.
What is the philosophy behind the theme of Europe Year?
One of Ball State's strategic goals is to expand the university's campus around the world, and part of that means that we'd like to encourage as many students as who can to travel overseas and study abroad during the 4 years that they spend here. But for those students for whom that's very difficult for whatever reason, the university would like to bring the world to Ball State, and Europe Year fits into that strategic plan to bring other cultures and other ideas and other perspectives to Ball State.
What are some upcoming events we can look forward to seeing?
Europe Year really kicks off in a big way day after tomorrow. Friday will be the Eurofest celebration in the Quad. There'll be a mock European village set up there. There'll be entertainment events. There'll be cultural events. There are speakers throughout the day. And one of the most exciting things that will happen on Friday is a international teleconference that will be broadcast live from our campus to 51 university sites around the country. Will involve U.S. Senator Richard Lugar from Indiana, Representative Lee Hamilton, as well as governmental officials from the European Economic Community who will be participating in this teleconference.
Thank you. That Europe Year sounds so exciting. I've got a question I've been dying to ask you, and I know a lot of people want to know about, is what is the completion date for the new stadium?
The arena, yeah. A lot of people do want to know about that, you're right. The contractors tell us that it will be finished and completed on November 18th. That was the original completion date, and we intend to hold the contractors to that. We're excited about it being finished on the 18th, and we're excited about getting in that building. One of the things that is already scheduled there in May is the NCAA Men's Final Four Volleyball Championships in the new arena at Ball State in May of 1992. And of course there'll be concerts, there'll be trade shows, there'll be all kinds of exciting things in addition to basketball in there.
I was going to say, when is the first basketball game scheduled?
Well, that's a good question. We're not quite sure of that yet.
Not quite sure. Well, also I've heard that this year's enrollment is extremely high. Can you tell me about that?
The highest in history. 20,488 students on the Ball State campus this year. Wow. And that's primarily due to retention. We've done an excellent job in assuring that students are able to return after their freshman year, because the dropout rate and all has been high in the past. And this year, for the first time, 77% of all of last year's freshmen returned for their sophomore year this year, and that accounts to a large measure for the record high enrollment we have.
Well, it certainly is great for Ball State. Thank you so much for joining us, Jeff.
Thank you.
For years, undergraduates have been arriving on Ball State's campus to find themselves faced with many decisions. One of those decisions is deciding whether or not to participate in Greek Rush. Here to tell us a little more about this is reporter Jill Fogg.
While most undergraduates are trying to adjust to classes, there are some who are taking on an even bigger task: Greek Rush 1991. Although it may sound like no big deal, these undergraduate women, otherwise known as Rush guests, are finding it very challenging. We interviewed Deborah Russell, Panhellenic Rush coordinator, to learn more about Greek Rush 1991.
What exactly can a woman expect when she participates in Greek Rush 1991?
Initially, the women must visit all 13 sororities on campus for a short period, a 25-minute party on Friday and Saturday. Then on Sunday, they visit a maximum of 7 parties for a little bit longer period of time. That way they get to spend a little more individual time with the sorority women and get to be a little more familiar with the individual members. The following weekend, they've narrowed their choice down to 4, and then on Sunday they go to 2 preference parties, which are the 2 sororities that they have preferred through all 13. At that party, they spend about an hour at each one. It's a little bit more of an emotional party than the rest of them. They really learn what sisterhood is about from the sorority members. Then when they come back from that, they make their choice.
Why should a woman participate in Rush?
I feel like that the Greek life has so much to offer anyone who decides to go through. There are so many leadership experiences that it can offer you. For example, the kind of job that I have, each one of the sororities has 15 plus offices that they can offer. A woman can get involved in committees, say for homecoming, for watermelon bust, etc. I feel like that a freshman should give it a chance, give it a try and go through.
For whatever reason a woman has to participate in Rush, all seem to agree that it's worth it.
What has been the most positive aspect about being involved in Rush?
Just the way everyone's so friendly and everyone's so nice. They go out of their way to be nice to you. And I just think that's neat. Everybody's so open with each other and so nice. I think it's a neat atmosphere. I love it.
What has been the most positive thing about being a Rokai?
I would have to say getting to know all the girls. We've met a lot of different diverse personalities, and it's a lot of fun to see them go through Rush because years ago we went through it, and it's a real special time.
Pledge night, the final night of Rush, when all of the excitement and tension comes together in one final moment.
Even after all of the excitement of the Rush experience has faded away, one thing still remains: friendships. For Campus Report Card, I'm Jill Fogg.
It's time now for our daily news commentary. Tiffany?
Hello, I'm Tiffany Rowe with the Daily News Commentary. Between crop shortages, looming economic disasters, and a coup here or there, the USSR has seen better days. Soviet communism is dead, and it's taking the country down with it. As Representative Les Aspin, chairman of the House of Armed Services Committee, put it, we do not want the first winter of freedom after 70 years of communism to be a disaster for the Soviet Union. Aspin's proposal to set aside $1 billion from the U.S. weapons program for aid to the suffering country is not only humane, it's the most intelligent course of action the United States can take in Soviet relations. Even though the Baltic states have seceded, each economy is still on the brink of disaster. The existing Soviet government is weak and unstable, and political instability with nuclear weapons is a potentially lethal combination. The U.S., as the competing superpower, would have the most to worry about. These are the threats that neither America nor the world needs. The Cold War was warmed greatly. The hard-fought relations do not need to be broken by republics ruled by chaos and hunger. The humanitarian aid will stabilize the economic chaos that could throw the Baltic states and the rest of the Soviet Union into a hotbed of mayhem. But even though our domestic ills continue to fester and seethe, there really is no alternative to aiding the Soviets with U.S. money for 3 reasons. First, if we do not aid them and avert the bedlam, who will? Secondly, it will benefit the U.S. in the long term. The separate economies will hopefully contribute to ours later. This is a chance we cannot pass up. Thirdly, it is an impossibility with the current ultra-conservative administration. The budget agreement between Congress and Bush prohibits transfer of money between domestic programs, foreign aid, and defense. Besides, Bush will continue the precedent of ignoring domestic issues set by every president since Nixon. It is sad that idealistic musings of spending that $1 billion on education or the homeless is ludicrous at this time, but at least this aid could be done in a noble sense and for a purpose to aid us in the future. Thank you. I'm Tiffany Rowe with the Daily News Commentary.
And now with the latest on Ball State sports, here's Todd Tomlin. Todd?
Good evening, I'm Todd Tomlin. This is sports. After losing their season opener to Mid-American Conference rivals Miami of Ohio and coming back on September 7th to deal Navy their first loss at 33-10 on the season, the Ball State Cardinals finished a tough battle against a strong Texas Christian University football team and came up just short of a victory last Saturday, losing 22-16. The Cards, who played an almost play-for-play game with TCU, lost on some all-around minor mistakes and a couple of major faux pas that set their record for the season at 1-2. 0-1 in the MAC as the Cards prepare to host Kent State in their first home game of the season. More on that later. The special teams, kickers, punters, and their crews were responsible for the two major catastrophes of the afternoon when the center and punter missed each other's cues altogether. Two snaps intended for BSU's Damon Keller were launched awry, and both forced the Cards, who were beginning to find their offensive balance, to give up the ball deep in their own territory to the Horned Frogs, and those Horned Frogs from TCU. The Cards, however, took advantage of TCU's two punting errors, a mirror image of the two that the Cards made, to come from behind 22-7 all the way up to 22-16. With a safety and a touchdown all in less than 5 minutes, these incidentally were the final 5 minutes of the game. The last of BSU's scoring drives took just 4 plays. The Cards even tried at a last touchdown, which would have won the game by 1 for them, but efforts were thwarted as time ran out in Fort Worth. As mentioned, the statistics were so similar you'd think a supernatural force induced them. However, running back Corey Kroom had another explosive game for the Cards and was the game-leading rusher with 92 yards on 24 carries, including a 44-yard touchdown run. Sophomore quarterback Mike New connected on 25 of 43 passes, totaling 207 yards, and Travis Moore was the Cards' game-leading receiver with 10 snags for 87 yards. Texas Christian's quarterback Leon Clay suffered a broken left fibula just above the ankle to sideline him for the rest of the season. The Cards open their home season against Kent State of the MAC Conference this Saturday. Hope to see you at the stadium. Ball State has had an interesting development in the men's basketball complex. Some may not know yet, but a review of phone bills which itemize outgoing long-distance phone calls revealed that possibly some unauthorized calls had been made using access codes used by the basketball coaches and their authorized staffs. On Monday, August 19th, Ball State University officials announced in a press release that they are conducting an inquiry into the possible misuse of the access codes. Potentially involved are former players of the BSU men's basketball team and even people who had no connection to the basketball program. Without any valid figure of the cost of the calls, officials say the cost could amount to well into the thousands of dollars. I'm Todd Tomlin. We'll have more as this story updates.
Thanks, Todd. Well, that concludes this week's edition of Campus Report Card. Join us next week when we have WLBC's Al Rent in the studio and Tracy Huckabee from the Homecoming Steering Committee.
We'll also have a complete review of all of the Europe Year festivities that take place this Friday in the Quad.
Should be a good show. Thanks for joining us for Campus Report Card. I'm Brandon Utterback.
And I'm Kathy Spalding. See you next week.
The Institute for Wellness at Ball State University assists the university in its efforts to make Ball State a comprehensive wellness environment. The Institute assists individuals interested in managing their own health and well-being. The cornerstone of the Institute for Wellness is the Wellness Management Master's degree, which provides opportunities for students seeking to discover why people are healthy and to evaluate the effectiveness of health promotion and wellness activities. The Ball State University Institute for Wellness promotes organizational health and informs self-management for a better life. For more information, please call 285-8259. If you have suggestions or comments regarding Campus Report Card, write to Campus Report Card in care of the Department of Telecommunications, Muncie, Indiana 47306.